24th. This is the fourth Friday meeting of the OHDSI Phenotype Development Evaluation Workgroup. Today we have our guest speakers from the Department of Veterans Affairs. Jackie Hunterlaw is going to talk to us about the VA Cipher program and their intent to integrate the content of the OHDSI Phenotype Library into the VA Cipher program so that it is available to the OMOP researchers at the VA. That's the main topic for today. Before diving in, is there anybody is totally new to the work group and would like to introduce themselves?
Okay. I have a few VA colleagues on, so those are names that might be unfamiliar.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, absolutely. So maybe we can start, Jackie, with an introduction of your colleagues and the members of the VA Cipher program.
Great, I can start. I'm Jackie Hunterlaw. I'm Deputy Director of Cipher, and yeah, we were lucky enough to meet up with Gautam at the fall AMIA Symposium. I see Ashley's on.
Hi, yes, my name is Ashley Galloway. I'm Associate Director of our Strategic Partnerships and Outreach, and we're really happy to be here to talk to you more about Cipher today. Thank you.
Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Michael Murray. I'm the technical lead for Cipher. Nice to meet everyone.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's it from Cipher Team who's on thus far.
That's great. So welcome. Jackie, how would you like to go about it? Do you have slides? Do you want to take away?
I have some slides.
15 minutes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have some slides to share, and we'll definitely stay within our brief time. So let me just share my screen and make sure that you guys can see it. Can you see my slides here?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm having a little issue with my connection, my camera shut off, so apologies in advance. But so thanks, Gautam, for inviting us to join your working group today. And as you mentioned, we are hoping to describe how we could potentially integrate with your guys' phenotype library. And so just to start out, we'll give a brief overview of Cipher and some ideas we had for the integration and make sure we have time for discussion as well. And so I know this group is very familiar with developing phenotypes and EHR data. This is the phenotyping working group. And I don't need to tell you this takes time, it takes staff and clinical knowledge and computing resources. And that's why you guys set up your phenotype library to try to reuse work that's already been done by experts and really save time and use the best definitions out there. And that's really what we are looking to do as well. So to that end, we developed Cipher, which is the centralized interactive phenomics resource. And it's a publicly accessible phenotype library that we launched last year, aiming to accelerate health data research. And now, this was developed in the VA, but we had worked with phenomics experts outside of VA as well to make sure this would be a system that would be useful not only for VA investigators, but for the public and health data users who are looking to develop and catalog phenotypes. So briefly, we have over 6,000 definitions in our library from various disease domains. And we also have a growing and diverse user base beyond the VA. We have nearly 8,000 users from our collaborators mentioned here. And since Cipher launched last year, we've been expanding our user base and plan to expand it further by collaborating with other federal agencies and research consortia to get more content and resources for health data users. So that's why we are connecting here with you today. And so I want to take a couple minutes to just go over the content of our website. And maybe, Ashley, if you could just paste in this URL into the chat as well, but you can see the URL for our site listed here. And I'm just going to go over a few highlights. I'll share these slides after the call as well, so you can have access to these links. So first, our phenotype knowledge base has searchable phenotype articles that site visitors can browse using text search and filters. And our phenotype definition metadata is stored using the Cipher standard, which we developed to enable reproducing of phenotypes. So the idea is that a user can visit the library and really judge the phenotype based on their use case and determine if it fits for them to reuse. And the metadata is there to help them with that process. Phenotypes are uniquely identifiable, and they can be shared in manuscripts with a URL link, and changes to the metadata are tracked in the database. So I'm not going to go through all of this here. We have a manuscript that I can also send to you, but this is just an overview of what we collect in the Cipher standard, and the information ranges from, the author, publication, the components used in the definition, any validation information, and we use both, Cipher-defined categories and existing vocabularies and ontologies as well. And I think the really important point is that because we are using a standard for all our phenotype definitions, this allows comparison of phenotypes as well. So I will just go through quickly an example here. You'll be able to search this on the site as well, just to give you a little bit of a feel for what this looks like to see the metadata for a definition. Again, I'm going through very quickly because we don't have too much time together here. And I think the takeaway is that we try to be flexible and have certain required fields, but allow the user to point to places like, a GitHub repository or code repository, attach figures, and point to manuscripts as well. And so our phenotype entry form allows collection of this metadata using the standard. We allow validation of fields against standard vocabularies where available. Here's an example of searching against ICD codes. And then after a phenotype is submitted, our team reviews for clarity and completeness. And after approval, we populate into the knowledge base. So briefly, we have also data visualization tools which connect to this phenotype knowledge base. And we have two tools shared by the VA Million Veteran Program on our site. The first is a PHCode to ICD map tool, which displays mappings from ICD-9 and 10 codes to clinician-curated PHCode codes, which you all may be familiar with some phenotyping efforts. And also the Kessler network, shown in the middle here, which visualizes a network structure of EHR codes using co-occurrence summary level data from VA and Mass General Brigham. And this is a tool which allows selection of concepts related to a phenotype so that you can bypass manual feature selection and asking clinicians for a list of concepts. And I'll point out here, and I can show this in a deeper demo, but if I clicked on this central node for type 1 diabetes, I would be brought to the phenotype definition in Cipher, which is pretty cool. We describe both the metadata standard and our website further in our recent publications here, so you can learn a little bit more. But I just want to sort of close our overview section just to highlight really some of our key functions of the site. And one of the key functions we're looking to expand is the ability to explore related phenotypes based on definition metadata and the co-occurrence of concepts in EHRs. And to achieve this, we are developing new tools to visually explore these relationships. And again, like I said, connect back to the knowledge base so people can find phenotypes and use them. And of course, we're always looking to enhance the site and get feedback from our users to expand our knowledge base through partnerships. And again, that's why we're meeting with this group today, because we'd really like to partner with the OHDSI team. So we really wanted to turn now to thinking about how can OMOP be integrated into Cipher. And our goal is to really make sure that users of OMOP data can search and share phenotype definitions in Cipher. This is really important because it's such a huge user community. And we definitely have folks at the VA, as I'm sure you know, using OMOP as well, and other colleagues. And so we have a few ideas for our planned approach. We definitely want to hear from this group as well. But first off, we want to integrate OMOP concepts into Cipher. Like I showed how you can search against, the ICD codes. We'd love for folks to search against for OMOP concepts. And then we're working with investigators at All of Us programs, since they are using OMOP for their phenotype definitions. We can start piloting collection of some of their phenotypes. And then, of course, we wanted to connect with you all and think about how we can work with you in your phenotype library. So, this is kind of bringing back when we first met with Gautam, we were learning a bit about the library, and we were thinking about how could this fit in with Cipher. And so after really playing around with it and thinking about it, I think there are some goals that we both have in common. And our goals here are first and foremost to promote OMOP use and promote your library to our Cipher community. And then I think we could really help you by making it easy for people to find the OHDSI phenotypes and really point them toward your library. And so we thought of initially that dementia and stroke phenotypes could be a good place to start, but we thought about it a little bit more, and they might be good examples, but I think in identifying some pilot phenotypes, we thought it would be nice to identify some that were shared at conferences, that we would have enough metadata to be able to populate in our standard. And it would even be great to work with some of the authors of these phenotypes as well and get some feedback on the process. But after, we identified some phenotypes together that fit this build, that we could, collect the metadata, enter them in Cipher, and then we reference the OHDSI Phenotype Library for select fields and point back. And I think this is something we need to sit down and work through together, but this is just our overall idea. And so I know, we had to be very brief on this call. I want to be very mindful of time. So perhaps we can have a follow-up where we can demo more. And we have a few questions for your team that maybe can just be answered over email, but wanted to leave us time to discuss, the proposal and see if you had any questions.
Jackie, thank you so much for the clear description. And I think the proposal that's on the table seems very tangible. That's my initial reflection. Anybody on the call who want to share their thoughts before we go deeper? Asa, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, Jackie, this is wonderful. It's thank you for the brief presentation. And I did actually read the first paper and the description of the metadata, and I was very, very impressed and also very excited that somebody in the VA with so much access to data and also a lot of influence actually having the same exact approach that we have for phenotyping in general. That was very exciting to see. So I totally agree that it's a very natural thing that we should collaborate, because and you pointed out here some of the things that we could do together, and I think it's totally makes sense and very, very, it's going to be very impactful. I just have a very, very brief question, very high level question. How did you get to 6,000 phenotypes? Because we've been working, and it's really one of our biggest hurdles is how do we get those phenotypes to be submitted to the library across the community. We know that people develop phenotypes all the time, but the people, even when they develop phenotypes, they're very worried about their validity in terms of putting it in a library. So even though they use them in their own research, they're not very comfortable, So how did you get to accumulate the resource?
Yeah, so I will say a lot of that number is from working with colleagues at the Million Veteran Program in the VA and at Harvard Medical School, Mass General Brigham, who work on high throughput phenotyping methods and large scale phenotype development. So many phenotypes at once, right? And so yeah. I think that working closely with them has allowed us to build a library. And yeah, not all of these definitions have been validated. They're in, some have been, yes, used in studies, some have been reviewed for accuracy. I think we want to invite all comers in terms of definitions too. And I think your point is well taken that some people are like more comfortable with that and some people are a little less comfortable with that, but we're trying to encourage a norm in the community that if you certainly if you publish a definition, a paper with a definition, that you would share it. And that's actually becoming a norm in the VA. All funded VA researchers are required to deposit their phenotypes in Cipher upon publication. So it's like it's taken time, but like we're trying to make it become a cultural norm. But yeah, I'm so glad to hear your reaction. I think Gautam connected us with you as someone we might potentially work with on this pilot. So looking forward to meeting with you further.
And Jackie, you shared a review process. So when a phenotype is submitted using probably a tool that Cipher has, and there is a team that reviews it, and do you have an acceptance or a clarification criteria, or how do you go about?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question because this is something we had to be measured with. So we have our phenotype metadata standard. We have required fields. We have controls on what can be entered in different fields, so we can sort of guide people to share the right information. And like I said, our review is more for completeness and clarity. We're not judging your phenotype and saying, you're missing this code. I don't think you're defining diabetes correctly. It's really more, we're sort of taking from the author based on their experience. And as long as they give us the context we require, and it's clear to us, and we, can go back and forth right within our website to ask questions to clarify, we really sort of put our trust in the author to describe what they did. And it's not sort of our place to decide this is not a good phenotype. We let the users of the library come search the library. We actually have a new comparison tool available so they can just compare and see what makes sense for them to reuse.
Thank you, Jackie.
Great question.
Because that's in line with, it's the honest broker idea that I think the OHDSI Phenotype Library also subscribes to. Joel, do you have a question?
Yeah, Jackie, this is really interesting stuff that you guys are doing here. So I may have missed it, but is there logic associated with the phenotype definitions, or is it strictly the codes?
So logic could be provided. We don't have a modeling logic that is required as part of the submission. We do require the codes, but we're trying to be flexible given the wide range of contributors that there may be. Some we would definitely encourage that to be contributed, but it's not a requirement. You have to describe how you use the codes to define your phenotype so someone could reproduce it. But
Jackie,
and that's included within the tool. You can do that within the tool?
Yeah, so that was a question. Based on my understanding of, you have a way to represent a logic when it exists, correct? In the submission itself, or in the website.
We have I think a few things. I'll let others from Cipher comment if they want to as well, but we have a section to describe how the codes are used together. We also allow pointing to like a Git repository, an addition of code, but I'll just let others comment from Cipher too.
I think they're just asking for like if there's a way to enter and if there's a way to browse. The answer is yes. That like under like the algorithm description where you can describe whether this is a rules based, that you can just use any of the codes in the like list that is required as entry, or I need 2 codes under this condition or under 1 code under that condition. Like Jackie said, there's like a wide range of like how algorithm is being defined. Some is rule based, which is very simple. Just take like whether you can satisfy this condition. There are other more complex, which is going to be algorithmic approach, where you can, so under the algorithm description, you can enter the actual the equation of like how you should be using like the components of the phenotype. And others could be even more complex, because this is, you do have to run like a script or something to create the actual probabilities or clusters based on the utilization specific to your institute, which then you will allow like either copy and pasting a script or program code, or pointing to a GitHub for the program to do that.
Understood. So you would have codes only. It could be codes plus rules, as written as text. It could be codes or rules, or even code, executable code that was run by the study at a certain site.
Yes, whatever is required to enter to create the phenotype, but it's not required, because not every phenotype has a code associated with it. Only the component, like the ICD codes or CPT codes, those are required fields.
Understood. Does anybody else on the call have any comments or questions? Great. So in terms of the next steps, so first of all, I think the work group is all on board with the proposal of the intent of working together with the VA, making the content of the OHDSI Phenotype Library available to the VA OMOP researchers, and the opportunity to highlight the OHDSI work in the VA community and probably outside also. So I think this is a win-win scenario for all of us. I'd see a small subtle differences between the VA Cipher library and the OHDSI Phenotype Library. I think one critical thing is the OHDSI Phenotype Library's definitions are executable definitions on an OMOP Common Data Model. It has each entry in the library, when executed on an OMOP instance, should yield a cohort, and that's the fundamental rule of the library, which I think is in line with the VA Cipher. The components of the definition are exposed in the OHDSI Phenotype Library. The components could include codeless, so whether this is NOMAD codes or ICD-9, 10 codes, they are exposed and available for each unit of entry in the OHDSI Phenotype Library. The metadata are collected. That includes some metadata like who authored it, any discussions on it, which references to the OHDSI forums. There are content that are captured in the library itself, such as a logic description. And there's a lot of content that is like an informatics computer generated based on the cohort definition. In terms of the proposal of the phenotypes, going on a pilot, I saw a short list of clinical ideas of phenotypes on your slide. Those like Alzheimer's disease and stroke, I think those are good to start. I'm also happy to look at the OHDSI Phenotype Library and pick a few that we think are good for a pilot. And then we could select some definitions and try to map and how those could be integrated into VA Cipher.
That all sounds great from our end. Yeah, I think we wanted to make the point that I sort of look to you to perhaps suggest the most appropriate pilot phenotypes. So that sounds good.
And you can definitely answer those questions that Jackie you proposed about, like how we maintain certain things, maybe by email, or that's a separate call for like to go deeper into some of the details.
Yeah. I suggest, Jackie, if you're amenable to this proposal, I suggest we create a smaller subgroup that works on a certain cadence with a timeline and a goal. And that could be, and please feel free to propose the timeline and the cadence for it. But in general, we could say, like the first step would be to select the clinical ideas or phenotypes that we want to collaborate on, and then try to do a mapping, like your metadata model and the OHDSI library's metadata model. Are there any edits or changes that needs to be done to the OHDSI Phenotype Library to match with the VA Cipher's model? If yes, we'll learn that and we'll try to implement those. And then we can create the technical plan to do the integration.
That sounds like a good plan from my end, and my gears are turning about, is this even something we could describe in like a, for a conference abstract? But I won't jump ahead too far. That sounds like a good plan, Gautam.
I have a few other additional questions that comes to my mind. Now we're going to brainstorming session. Is the VA Cipher the metadata, does that capture versions? So if a definition evolves, is it a replacement, or you add on? How do you handle changes to a definition?
Jackie, would you like to take that question?
Oh yeah, we have a revision history that we are actually just launching in a couple weeks for users to be able to see the major changes to definition over time. So that is something that would be accessible to the authors of a phenotype to be able to submit an update to their definition.
So, Asa, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
Jackie, one other area that we could also work with, or other than integrating and getting the phenotypes across from OHDSI to Cipher, I was wondering about your direction with comparing phenotypes. When you were thinking of comparison, or is the idea comparing phenotypes structurally, like what they like the actual content in terms of like what codes are missing and so forth, or were you thinking of using like patient level data to understand how those definitions might yield to different type of patients?
Go ahead, Anne.
We can, either one of us can take that question. So it's going to be a tool that will be launched this year. That it's a tool where you can compare the metadata of the phenotype side by side. So Cipher does not take PHI, but we do collect performance metrics, applying the phenotype on the cohort in a specific institute. So when you when you compare you can select multiple. So for example, if you select diabetes and there's 5 phenotypes show up that are 5 diabetes developed by 5 different institutes. The tool allows you to compare the metadata of the phenotype side by side, and you can compare like the differences of the phenotype, what codes are being shared across and what codes are not being shared across the different phenotypes, and it allows you to highlight the similarities and the differences. You can also compare like the nature and the type of like the methods, how it's developed, whether this is rule-based, whether this is an algorithmic-based, that you do require to run a more complex program code to implement. And it also, you can compare side by side whether which one is being validated, which one is not, and then also compare the performance metrics if available, or being validated and available, which one's performing better according to sensitivity and specificity, and under what context does this phenotype definition applies, whether this is applying for like a cohort study of like a white male, or this is going to be a cohort study for general public.
Yeah, I'm just showing on the screen. I hope you can see it. That's available now. We're also working to have a visualization tool that could like show where phenotypes have overlap in their metadata. That's something we're currently working on as well. But
I think one area that we could learn from you is because you have a full project with like Cipher is like very big compared to what we have with our library, because we're doing an open source kind of different, trying to put what we already have in Odyssey, leverage that to build the library. But I think we can learn a lot of what you learn in terms of which metadata is actually useful from a user perspective, how you structure that metadata, because we have been, just in terms of the science of maintaining a library, we've been slightly going back and forth of what metadata to keep, how can we structure something that is of use and can help users, as you said, like compare or select beyond, just look at the codes and see what's included and what's not, and all of that. So I think we would really benefit from the way you structure things, because it's been, it's a work that a lot like people contribute to, and then we can borrow some of those ideas, or just the fact that if our phenotypes got into Cipher, then by default that metadata is structured and kept in Cipher itself. And as long as we can link the two resources, then users can benefit from both resources. And definitely, particularly people who have their data in a CDM, in an OMOP CDM, because that would be even more specific to that benefit that group.
Actually, as if I may add, my thought actually went a little bit more. A dream that I had was maybe the National Library of Medicine will become the place where we can put the phenotype definitions. Well, there's an alternative now, which is the VA Cipher. So this sounds like an interesting opportunity to collaborate together, to have a one place that has a system to store definitions. The OHDSI Phenotype Library has content, but it does not have a user interface to submit definitions. It does not have a system to systematically rank order or curate definitions, and it does not have a system, a very good system, I would say, to surface up this definition and make it visible to users. And I've been always looking for a partner that could do that, and this may be the potential partner.
yeah, I think all the above sounds great to us.
Joel, you have your hands raised.
Yeah, so a couple quick questions. One, how are you managing the librarian function on this? Is that you, Jackie? As in who's,
you mean
who receives it, and how you're managing inclusion, and how you decide whether it's whether they need more work or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a group that does that, but like I said, we try to take off as much as we can on the reviewer and set the sort of parameters for entry of information so that we have little work to do on our end, and I guess, I don't know if the term is like having a light touch on what is submitted to us. I don't know if Anne, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it pretty much describes it. Like Jackie mentioned earlier, we're not really judging the validity of the phenotype for submission. We're only reviewing for clarity and completeness of a phenotype. So we do have a group of analysts, which and Cipher folks who are actually quite familiar with like phenotyping in general, like by now, who just review the clarity and the completeness of the phenotype. Some of them are also like clinicians and EHR like reviewers that are quite familiar with like just coding systems in general to make that judgment call.
Is your library more hands-on, I take it, I guess, just to understand maybe where that question's coming from, like what it's like on your end?
Yeah, so when we started out, we instituted something called a peer review process. So an independent person in the OHDSI community would be assigned the task of reviewing a submission and making a judgment call about the quality. It it was difficult and it was labor intensive because it almost became an editorial task of identifying a reviewer, asking them to follow through on the review, and then making a public comment about it. It's just an open review process. So it was difficult to implement. The second step that we did, and we are still actively ongoing work on this, is an informatics approach. Can we think about methodologies that rank audit similar definitions based on some operating characteristics? And we're still working on it. It's not there yet. It could be simple things like there are obvious errors in the definitions. To here is the sensitivity, specificity, and positive predictive value, negative predictive value of the definitions in one data source. So that spectrum is still something that we are working on as a collaboration as part of this work.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's helpful to know.
But similar, like our approach currently is very similar to what you said, is that we have certain requirements that are that Gautam review, which include, you have to submit your code, your logic, when like you have to explain the law. It's not, you don't explain the logic, you submit it through a JSON, which computable readable language, and then you just like what you said, you make your comments about what's the context, how did you develop this, and what evaluation or validation metrics you have. We also have some tools in OHDSI like cohort diagnostics, which we run as part of the submission. So we got and take those definitions, we run them across patient level data just to see that it actually does yield subjects and stuff like that. So there's some minimum requirements, but we went from a full review that includes revision of patient level data, how does the phenotype perform across the network, into just minimum requirement that actually it's something that would run and generate some a cohort table in a OMOP CDM.
Yeah. Siegfried, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. This is so exciting. I haven't been coming for a while, but I saw the email and this is very exciting. So you were talking about making more visualization tools for comparing phenotypes. I've been working for a long time and have done some interesting implementation of visualization techniques for comparing concept sets or value sets, code sets for N3C, and which is based on an OMOP model. So I've really built this for OMOP, but my hope has been to get it into OHDSI tools someday, but I don't have funding for that. But I would love to talk to you guys and see if, somehow my tools or ideas could make it into Cipher on their way into OHDSI somehow.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to talk further, so we can get a sense of what you're doing, and you can hear more about sort of our direction.
Yeah, I'll send you guys email at the somehow.
So for next steps, I'll start a subgroup, and please, if anybody in this call is interested in being part of the work group, please email me and then I will add you to the work group. I'll start a channel, and then we'll go through the timeline and the steps to integrate OHDSI Phenotype Library and the VA Cipher library. Jackie, thank you so much. Jackie and Michael, thank you so much for attending this work group call and providing your perspective and for your willingness to collaborate with the OHDSI community.
Yeah, and thank you guys for being so open with us. I think this will be a great collaboration, and yeah, we look forward to meeting with you all again. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I saw everybody drop the call. So the other topics that we have as part of the work group is the dermatomyositis study that proposed by Dr. Christopher McCauley. See, he's not on the call, but Will is on the call. Will, do you have any questions or comments or updates that you want to share?
I do have some updates. So first of all, I want to thank everyone for your tremendously valuable input last time. As a result, we took those comments and we incorporated them all into the code. And then I also completely refactored the repository, so it looks much more like a Hydra package that everyone is used to seeing. So now the package loads like in our library. It keeps the same format. We try to make it as easy as possible based on those recommendations. So I do want to thank everyone very much on that. I would appreciate if anyone has a chance to take a look at some of our changes and see if it makes more sense the way it's laid out.
That's excellent news, Bill. Thank you so much. I'm going to I'll dedicate some time today to go through it, and I'll provide any feedback. I'll also try to execute it.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And this is what I think is probably it's at least very close to its final state. So definitely very much interested in hearing if people run into any major issues executing.
Yep. Anything else that we want to talk about for today? All right. I think that's a wrap, guys. This was a good call. Thank you so much for attending this Friday morning, and I'm looking forward to working with you all in the next call.
Opposed.